Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us tonight. These are unprecedented times. Events unfold and change by the minute. And as the days go by, we watch as our leaders cope with relentless march of this virus and disease. I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us. And now to the news. First, U.S. President Donald Trump said he will announce guidelines for reopening the economy on Thursday with the possibility of reopening some states before the deadline of May 1st. This was during his daily press briefing at the White House on the coronavirus. Take a look.
Great signs of progress, and new cases in Houston and New Orleans are declining. The battle continues, but the data suggests that nationwide we have passed the peak on new cases. Hopefully that will continue, and we will continue to make great progress. These encouraging developments have put us in a very strong position to finalize guidelines for states on reopening the country, which we'll be announcing. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow. We'll be having a news conference tomorrow sometime during the afternoon. We're going to be announcing guidelines, and we'll be talking about various states, and it's very exciting. We'll also be speaking to America's governors tomorrow, and then we'll be announcing exactly what's happening. You already know we'll be opening up states, some states much sooner than others, and we think some of the states can actually open up before the deadline of May 1st. Not all states are the same. They're very different. Some are having very little problem. Some have done such a good job that they have very little problem, and they're ready to go. So Vice President Pence and I will be speaking with the governors tomorrow.
Millions of Americans have lost their jobs due to the lockdown measures, and unemployment numbers are at record levels. Retail sales dropped by 8.7% in March, the biggest decline since tracking began in 1992, according to government data released on Wednesday. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump also threatened to adjourn Congress to allow him to appoint officials whose nominations he claimed were being blocked by Democrats in the Senate. He accused the Democrats in the Republican-controlled Senate of stalling the nominations of several top administration officials whose appointments require Senate confirmation. The Constitution allows a president to make what are known as recess appointments when Congress is not in session. Take a look.
There are currently 129 nominees stuck in the Senate because of partisan obstruction. Many are nominated for vacancies that must be filled to assist with the coronavirus crisis and the resulting economic challenges. And I've read over the couple of years, well, I didn't fill positions. I don't fill positions. In some cases, we don't need the position, and I'm all for that. But in many cases, you do, but we can't get them approved by the Democrats. They won't release them. The positions include the Director of National Intelligence, 2 members of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, the Assistant Secretary of Treasury for Financial Markets of the United States, and the Undersecretary of Agriculture responsible for administering food security programs. And Sonny Perdue, who's going to be speaking today, is saying, please, can I have this particular person approved as soon as possible? The Senate has left Washington until at least May 4th. The Constitution provides a mechanism for the president to fill positions in such circumstances. The recess appointment, it's called. The Senate's practice of gaveling into so-called pro forma sessions where no one is even there. The recess provisions. The Senate should either fulfill its duty and vote on my nominees, or it should formally adjourn so that I can make recess appointments. We have a tremendous number of people that have to come into government, and now more so than ever before because of the virus and the problem. We have to do it, and we have to do whatever we have to do. If the House will not agree to that adjournment, I will exercise my constitutional authority to adjourn both chambers of Congress. The current practice of leaving town while conducting phony pro forma sessions is a dereliction of duty that the American people cannot afford during this crisis. It is a scam what they do. It's a scam, and everybody knows it. And it's been that way for a long time. And perhaps it's never done before. It's never been done before. Nobody's even sure if it has, but we're going to do it. We need these people here. We need people for this crisis, and we don't want to play any more political games. I've been waiting for 2.5 years.
As some European countries begin to relax lockdown measures following weeks of confinement introduced to halt the spread of the coronavirus, the World Health Organization has warned of a potential second wave of COVID-19 infections. In an update to strategic advice to governments issued overnight, the UN Health Agency called for greater support for health services. Without it and other measures, including testing for infection, the premature lifting of physical distancing measures is likely to lead to an uncontrolled resurgence in COVID-19 transmission and an amplified second wave of cases, according to the WHO. To date, Austria, Denmark, Spain, and Italy have relaxed some lockdown measures. Among its recommendations, WHO said that more should be done to identify those with mild disease symptoms, not just the severe cases. The development follows an appeal for greater solidarity in combating the disease from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Now, in a statement supporting the UN Health Agency on Tuesday evening, as U.S. President Donald Trump announced that he was stopping the funding for the UN Health Agency WHO pending a review, Mr. Antonio Guterres, head of the United Nations, or Director General, appealed for greater unity. Take a look.
With the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have deep concerns whether America's generosity has been put to the best use possible. The WHO's attack on travel restrictions put political correctness above life-saving measures. Had the WHO done its job to get medical experts into China to objectively assess the situation on the ground and to call out China's lack of transparency, the outbreak could have been contained at its source with very little death, and certainly very little death by comparison. This would have saved thousands of lives and avoided worldwide economic damage. Instead, the WHO willingly took China's assurances to face value, and they took it just at face value, and defended the actions of the Chinese government, even praising China for its so-called transparency. I don't think so.
In a statement issued last night, the Secretary General reiterated his belief that the World Health Organization must be supported, as it is absolutely critical to the world's effort to win the war against COVID-19. He also made clear that once more that once we have finally turned the page on this epidemic, there must be a time to look back fully to understand how such a disease emerged and spread its devastation so quickly across the globe, and how all those involved reacted to the crisis. But now is not that time. And as it is not that time, it is also not the time to reduce the resources for the World Health Organization or any other humanitarian organization that is working in the fight against the virus. As he has said before, now is the time for unity and for the international community to work together in solidarity to stop this virus and its shattering consequences.
Staying with COVID-19, although countries that have experienced very large outbreaks have started to see a slight deceleration in the number of infections, the number of infections has not yet peaked. That is according to the WHO in Geneva. Let's listen in.
Some of the very large outbreaks that we're seeing in Spain and Italy, we're beginning to see a slight deceleration in cases. It's going to take time, but yes, they're seeing a slowing. Other countries, we're still seeing an increase, like Turkey, like the UK. So it's a very mixed picture. And the overall world outbreak, 90% of cases are coming from Europe and the United States of America. So we're certainly not seeing the peak yet.
9 in 10 cases are in Europe and the United States. World Health Organization data shows, with Spain and Italy seeing cases rates fall after dramatic spikes in the number of people falling sick. Since the new coronavirus emerged in central China in December, latest data from the WHO indicates More than 1.8 million cases and over 117,000 confirmed deaths, with 213 countries, areas, or territories reporting infections. Meanwhile, thousands of shops have reopened in Austria as it seeks to ease restrictions brought in to stem the spread of the coronavirus. Take a look.
Das Einzige, also wir bedanken uns heute zum Beispiel bei Kunden mit einem Nachlass, wenn sie nicht ihr Budget quasi schon online ausgegeben haben. Eine andere Hoffnung habe ich nicht.
Ich finde das ganz toll, weil die Geschäftsleute wollen ja auch von was leben. Und eins nach dem anderen, es ist halt so, man muss sich damit abfinden. Und ich hoffe, es geht dann für alle bergauf.
I'm glad about it because I'm living in Vienna now and I'm street artist here, opera singer on street. I sing on the street.
And some shops reopened in Venice as Italy begins to ease some of the lockdown restrictions, allowing bookshops, laundrettes, stationers, and children's clothing retailers to reopen. In certain hard-hit regions, local authorities have prolonged the restrictions. Take a look.
Ho comprato tanti libri, sì, avevo bisogno, come una dipendente, da qualcosa, da una sostanza, sì, ho comprato tanti libri, alcuni da regalare, alcuni che mi mancavano, di cui avevo proprio bisogno.
Quindi noi ci siamo organizzati nell'orario di apertura con una fascia oraria dedicata agli anziani o comunque alle persone a rischio, una fascia oraria dedicata solo a loro in maniera tale che loro possono frequentare la libreria in totale sicurezza, una persona alla volta. Anche se noi qua possiamo ospitarne 4, in quella fascia oraria loro entrano una alla volta.
Italy allowed bookshops and children's clothing retailers to reopen on Tuesday, but some business owners chose to stay shut, fearing it was too soon to lift the coronavirus lockdown. Laundrettes, as I said earlier, and stationery shops were also permitted to reopen as the government sought to gradually lift stringent lockdown measures imposed on March 9. Italy is one of the world's worst-hit countries, with more than 20,000 deaths, the second most after the U.S. The pandemic and lockdown measures have crippled its economy and brought daily life to a standstill. Most of the country's 60 million people have been confined to their homes, and most shops other than pharmacies and supermarkets have been shut. Though the central government said some shops could resume work, officials in hard-hit northern regions, including Lombardy and Piedmont, refused to resume business. Shops there would stay shut until May 3, when the countrywide quarantine is set to expire. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization's European office said on Thursday that despite some optimistic signs in some of the countries worst hit by the new coronavirus, the number of cases was rising and approaching 1 million in the continent alone. Let's listen in.
We remain in the eye of the storm. When we put proven measures in place, ensuring that we can identify, isolate and test all suspect cases and quarantine and monitor the health of all close contacts, providing care to those who need it, together with physical distancing measures if necessary, we can stop the virus in its tracks.
Opening the 2020 spring meetings today in Washington, D.C., the International Monetary Fund, IMF's Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva has outlined the difficult economic environment countries are now facing because of the COVID-19 epidemic and her global plan of action to take it on. Take a listen.
It is a crisis like no other. In scope, we are now in the worst recession since the Great Depression. We are experiencing a 3% contraction of global GDP, and 170 countries are going to see income per capita falling versus what we expected 3 months ago for 160 for them to go up. Making sure that our financial system continues to function, it matters. And what we have seen is central banks providing ample liquidity, $8 trillion of fiscal measures. So our message is spend as much as you can, but keep the receipts. We don't want accountability and transparency to take a backseat in this crisis. It is really difficult time for everybody, but in particular, it is difficult for countries that already stepped into this crisis with complex challenges. The same way the virus hits people with existing preconditions that are more vulnerable, the hardest. It hits economies with pre-existing difficulties the hardest. We are telling everybody, do all you can. And I just want to assure you that we are following ourselves on our own advice. Everything is on the table in terms of measures we can take. What we do is first do all we can with the resources we have. Second, make sure that there are no gaps in what we have to be of service to the membership. Everything is on.
Eagle News will be right back. All right, welcome back. Australia will retain restrictions on public movement for at least 4 more weeks. That and other updates from our EBC correspondent in Australia, Alyssa Ventura. Hello, Alyssa.
Hello, Alma.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm pretty fine, thank you.
Okay, what are your updates for us, Alyssa?
All right, we are bringing you the latest updates on the COVID-19 crisis in Australia. According to the Australian Department of Health, as of 3:00 p.m. today, 16th of April 2020, there has been 6,468 confirmed cases of COVID-19 here in Australia, up by 21 new cases within the last 24 hours. New South Wales still holds the highest number of recorded cases at 2,897, followed by Victoria at 1,301 and Queensland at 1,001 cases. Out of the 6,468 confirmed Australian cases, 63 people have died from the disease, and more than 380,000 tests have been conducted nationwide. The Australian government has released relief packages and support to those who are greatly affected by the current COVID-19 restrictions. A new higher education relief package was released to support those workers who have been displaced due to the COVID-19 crisis, to help them in upskilling or retaining, and to also help higher education providers and universities to continue providing education. The government will also provide another $3 million to provide support to frontline healthcare workers in training and providing information about treatment of COVID-19 patients. On a positive note, Alma, during a press release this afternoon, the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, has announced that the current coronavirus restrictions will remain for at least another 4 weeks. He has stated that for these restrictions to be lifted, 3 measures must be put in place. These are extensive sentinel surveillance in the testing regime, greater contact tracing capability, and increase in local response capability. That's it for now in Australia. Back to you, Alma.
Okay, so you seem to see this in a positive light, an extension of one more month. How come?
It's just that although the restrictions are a bit strict here,
Mm-hmm.
people are keen to go back to their normal routine, as
Mm-hmm.
I've seen from everyone else as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Also time to rest and catch up with other things, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, and keep yourself safe and always stay healthy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alma. This is Alisa Ventura from Queensland, Australia. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, over in Japan, health officials in Kanagawa Prefecture have apologized after the authorities there said an elderly woman has tested positive for coronavirus, preventing her family from being with her during her death. Now, let's find out what happened here. We have more from Dennis Liu. Hello, Dennis.
Hi, Alma. Good evening to you and to all our televiewers. Right, for today's current news updates in Japan, Kanagawa Prefecture health officials apologized after they incorrectly claimed that an elderly woman had tested positive for the COVID-19. This human error prevented her family members from seeing her at the time of her death. The woman was living in the home for the elderly facility. The officials said she died from an illness not related to COVID-19 at a medical institution last Wednesday. After prefectural officials held news conference last Wednesday, they found out that samples were mixed up during testing at the prefecture's Institute of Public Health. The prefecture acknowledged their mistake after the medical institution raised doubt that a wrong sample had been identified. The institute extended their apologies to the woman's family. The head of the institute said he is deeply sorry for the mistake that robbed the woman from the chance to spend her final moments with her family. He stated that the institute will further examine the root cause of the mistake and they would take steps to prevent this from happening again. Meanwhile, Sony Japan, with other big companies from various industries that are making medical equipment for coronavirus patients, plans to assist in the production of more ventilators. While Sony uses its facilities to make ventilator parts, their factory in Aichi Prefecture would produce digital cameras. As the company plans to work with a medical equipment maker, an additional supply of more than 1,000 units will be made available for use from the beginning of July. Nihon Koden, a medical equipment maker, says it will ramp up ventilator production capacity at its factory north of Tokyo. This plant could boost the output from the current 30 units a month to 1,000 over the next 6 months. The company says it would obtain components from other partners and automotive manufacturers. Nihon Koden has already increased the production of its equipment to treat mild cases. Their current goal is to ensure that sufficient ventilators will be available for patients with serious symptoms as well. Alma.
Right. How is Tokyo looking right now? Can you give us a picture from the last time I talked to you?
Yes, Alma. Well,
Yeah.
according to the government, it would give 300,000 yen.
Oh.
However, today, I called 38 times to confirm who are eligible to receive
Okay.
the amount. Yes, but it was busy the whole time. Also, a group of ALT or assistant language teachers are talking about a possible assistance from the government
Okay.
amounting to 100,000 yen. However, this is not yet confirmed. Earlier, I saw in the city, in our area, that social distancing is being observed
Okay.
by 1 seat apart. Yes, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much. I guess I'll be hearing from you again tomorrow for more updates there in Japan. Stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank
Dennis.
you, Alma. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the Swiss government is to outline some easing on their emergency lockdown measures. Now, those were in place. That will be in place until April 26. Also, Switzerland faces a recession due to the pandemic. We have more from our EBC correspondent in Zurich, Ebby Ordinario. Hello, Ebby.
Hi, Alma.
Hi.
Good evening to everyone there, the viewers.
Okay, what are your updates for us, Ebby?
Okay, so the current situation here in Switzerland, we have 26,561 confirmed cases. Today is 1,115 deaths. 43 of those died overnight. Mm-hmm. So there are 200,000 that are being tested. And in the press conference on April 14, the Federal Council announced that the measures have been followed well and are having the desired effect. So the speed of the spread has been slowed significantly in recent days, and people needing hospital treatment has stabilized. As of now, there are about 400 in ICU with severe condition, but this number is relatively stable, and the trend is that the number of cases are declining. The Federal Council has extended measures with an additional week, so now it's until Sunday, April 26. And there are first careful steps to gradually ease the measures should commence before the end of the month. A decision on the specific areas and measures to be relaxed will be presented today in an hour from now, April 16, what exactly the measures will be and if they will be done. But until then, the Federal Council has commissioned the Health Department to work on a concept to gradually ease the measures. According to the Health Minister, Alain Berset, the gradual ease could comprise of 3 steps. So step 1 would be to allow barbershops, cosmetic salons, and other personal service providers to open. The next step in around May would allow primary schools and also retail stores to open. And then around July or August, also restaurants would be able to open. But if and when these steps will happen will depend on a number of conditions, like if there are new infections, how are the hospital admissions, and what are the current death rates, how will everyone does the hygiene or keeps their social distancing. All these numbers are being looked at to decide if they will actually ease the situation. So although these are very good things to hear, the economy, on the other hand, looks rather gloomy because Economy Minister Guy Parmelin says that the unemployment rate has risen to 3%, and it is forecasted that it will reach 7%. So with a population of 8.5 million, it means there would be around 600,000 people unemployed. In September 2019, the numbers were at 99,000, so it's almost 6 times more. The companies are trying to keep their employees by switching over to short-time work. There have been 1.5 million employees who have been claimed for this short-time work since March, which is a total of about 30% of the active force in Switzerland. So if the situation remains for a longer period of time, Parmelin fears that the Swiss economy will be in a deep crisis due to an estimated 25% loss of production. A similar statement also came from the State Secretariat for Economic Affairs. They informed us that the federal government expert group expects Switzerland to hit recession in this year. The spread of the new coronavirus in Switzerland and abroad is temporarily bringing parts of the economy to a standstill. Provided that the coronavirus situation stabilizes, the economy should gradually recover from the second half of 2020. So much from Switzerland.
Okay, so Ebby, is the Swiss government implementing an economic aid for the population just in case it takes a few more months?
Yes, well, the government has announced that they have 60 billion Swiss francs as emergency aid, but then, of course, if this goes much longer, then, of course, it will be depleted. Right now, smaller companies with 1 to 3 employees can file for help and receive the government aid. Even the banks are helping with their solidarity by allowing smaller companies to apply for a credit at the banks, and the government would pay back those debts. And the other measure, as we've heard, is short-time work.
Yes, what is
So
that short-time work? Yeah.
Short-time work is a setup to cope with temporary declines in business activities and to safeguard jobs. So instead of firing your employees, they reduce the working hours. So example, if you're working 100%, you only work 50%, and the other half of the 50% will be paid to 80% by the government. So that is one way that the companies are trying to keep their employees instead of losing everyone.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your update, Abby. Keep the updates coming and stay safe, stay positive. Thank you for your time, Abby.
Thank you, Alma. From Zurich, Switzerland, I'm Abby Ordinario. We live in interesting times.
And Eagle News, we'll be right back. All right, Belgium has extended its coronavirus lockdown until May 3. Joining us live from Belgium is Kate Rebibis. Hello, Kate.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our viewers. How are you, Alma?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing fine.
That's great. All right, so what are your updates for us, Kate?
So, Belgium has finally extended the lockdown. It was actually expected until the 3rd of May. And this was announced yesterday by the Prime Minister, Sophie Wilmès. And there are now 34,809 cases with 7,562 recoveries and 4,857 deaths. But yesterday we have the highest of the daily new case with 2,454. So it's not actually really slowing down. We expected that it was slowing down, but it didn't with this new record just yesterday. With this new lockdown extension, there comes with new measures along with the old ones, such as garden centers and do-it-yourself stores are allowed to reopen under the same conditions of social distancing. Residents and residential care centers only allow one visitor designated in advance, and they should have not been sick for the past 2 weeks. And the same person is only allowed to visit. There will be no mass events till the 31st of August, and the police will continue to fine people who violate measures. As for the educational institutions, they will announce as early as next week when we will start again, but they also said that all schools do not have to open on the same day. As for businesses, they should get ready to reopen after the lockdown or May 3. And for the big musical festivals such as Tomorrowland, Pukkelpop, and Rockwerchter, which is usually during the summer, are canceled this year.
All right, so I know that Belgium also has a homeless people problem. It's hard to follow stay-at-home guidelines when you don't have a home. So the homeless are more vulnerable and at risk. So how are the homeless being addressed there in Belgium?
Yes, that's true. There are a lot of homeless even here. And as for what they do for the homeless, Belgian Red Cross have set up homeless shelter in abandoned offices in Brussels mainly. And the homeless shelter actually open during the winter, but with the lockdown, they are accommodating only 250 people. With a small supply of medical equipment. But some choose to remain in the streets rather than being confined. As for the government, they have also released extra funding for countries' food banks and social services.
All right. Thank you very much, Kate. Keep the updates coming. We'll be hearing from you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alma. This is Kate Rebibis, and I'm from Belgium, and we live in interesting times.
Indeed. All right, let's now go over to Hawaii. Joining us live from Hawaii is Alfred Asenas. Hello, Alfred.
Half a day, Alma. Oh, I'm sorry. Talofa. No, I'm sorry. Aloha. I've been island hopping in my mind already. Okay.
Can't wait,
yeah,
huh?
because it's morning time. That's why.
Okay.
Anyway, so Alma, here the latest numbers in the Aloha State. No, 530 cases. That's up from 517 the other day. Now, lately, what we've been tracking here in Hawaii is the number of recoveries, and we're showing some optimistic trends here. That 359 have recovered. That's 68% of the confirmed cases. That's up from 64 the other day. Now, from our last meeting, Almano, we talked about the curfew that was planned over the weekend here on the island of Oahu, and according to Mayor Kirk Caldwell, he felt that the curfew, which took place on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, they did their purpose to help prevent further spread and contamination within the island. Now, unfortunately, however, because residents were forced to remain off the streets overnight during that time, what didn't stay off the streets was crime. So there were still some break-ins, some Honolulu police still had to pull over some people. Actually, the curfew violations were secondary violations. And just to show you real quick first, that chart that we have is the latest from the city county of Honolulu. So yes, the increase in number of cases is understandable. It's the number of recoveries. I think the one shaded in green is the one that we're keeping an eye out on. Also, what's been happening lately, we touched on Maui last time. We're talking. We're looking into possible additional cases on the Big Island. We did an article a couple of days ago of a couple of restaurants out in Kailua Kona. That's where our own Charmaine Serrera gave us a word that there's a couple of fast food restaurants that were in. There were as many as 7 employees who contracted the disease, and thankfully they're now in isolation. And according to the state health department, they believe that discovery did not lend to any further spread out in the western part of Big Island. That picture right there is a sample of break-ins out in Waikiki. Ron Hamilton provided us that, and there's some graffiti there. It says, "I guess the curfew does not apply to thieves." So that's unfortunate, and that really frustrated Honolulu Police Chief Susan Ballard for her to say shame on you to those who ended up violating the curfew, and even the other measures like social distancing. Now, earlier this week or yesterday, Mayor Caldwell signed an order mandating the wearing of masks in public, just like the one that you're seeing right now. And also, there's some additional test sites to be conducted throughout the island. And you can see, if you can look closer at the couple, so you have the man wearing the mask properly, and then you have the lady on the right, who's got her nose exposed. So we managed to capture that randomly, and then just to kind of send a message to everyone in the Aloha State that please wear those masks properly. Now, real quick, that there was a slide showing the testing coming up on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and you will notice the testing announcement showed a couple of locations outside of Honolulu. In light of what has happened in Maui and in the Big Island, now the city county of Honolulu, as well as the rest of the state, is looking at the smaller communities to find out if there are any more cases. So just to make sure whoever is sick or whoever may have symptoms are accounted for. And that one chart right there is just a trend of how many cases have been discovered on the island of Oahu, which still, as is understandable, they carry the vast majority of confirmed cases throughout Hawaii. So I mentioned earlier that the mandate to wear masks that Mayor Caldwell signed, it's going to take place actually this coming Monday, and it will last until the end of the month. So there were some details when I published the article in our eaglenews.ph and .net on how this law will take effect. And yes, it's enforceable and punishable by law. And just a way ahead for what we're looking at, Alma, is there's this latest plan, a proposal by the state. Governor Ige proposed a salary cut of 20% from state employees. Now, when you say state employees, that unfortunately includes public school teachers. As you know, Alma, Hawaii has been had this issue of a shortage of teachers for years. We even had news did a report on this a couple of years back. And to have that proposal in the middle of a crisis and in the middle of a teacher shortage, that really created a lot of stir, a lot of negative reaction from the teachers union here, and even from Hawaii's legislature. So we're trying to track the progress on that situation, and we'll give you more updates on that and other matters here in the Aloha State, Alma.
That is really sad. But the last time I talked to you, you were talking about the beaches. A poster you showed that there should be no one in the should be on the beach. How is that going along?
Well, for the most part, the public is adhering to the social distancing and stay shelter-in-place mandate here. Mm-hmm. And you will have your pockets of those who want to test the system. And not just here in Honolulu, but in other parts, in other islands. That's not going to go away. Now, are
there penalties?
Yes, the penalties are still the same. There's some fines of up to $5,000. It's the standard fine that is also applicable to violating the 14-day curfew. If you also violate the wearing of masks, out in public, mm-hmm. It will be punishable, and depending on the severity of the offense. And like I said, sometimes for those who get caught, they get caught for other reasons, whether it be from break-ins to speeding to the usual misdemeanors and violations. And then on top of that, they would get if they're caught without their mask, if they're caught being close to other people out in public, then that's your secondary violations. And how that's gonna be punished, depends. It'll depend in the eyes of the law. But Honolulu Police and other law enforcement agencies are very serious about enforcing these measures for everyone's safety. Now, and just an added note, Alma, no? The latest visitor arrival, I think, numbered less than 200. Now, that's significant. But in the eyes of the local authorities here, especially Honolulu, that's still quite a lot, because every time there's visitors visiting the islands, and they have, the authorities have to monitor to ensure then that they're abiding by the 14-day quarantine.
Okay.
So that requires some human resources to have to monitor that, as opposed to being able to protect our frontliners and other functions that are already in place to make sure there's peace and order. So that's some added observations from this end, Alma.
Mm-hmm. And how are you keeping your spirits up during this times?
Just for everyone's awareness. So right now I'm facing the kitchen, and we have here what we call an air fryer, and I learned how to air fry some chicken wings and some meat, which is actually a healthy way of eating as opposed to dealing with oil. So it's just a matter of just experimenting, if you will, in the kitchen, because I'm here for the most part, teleworking and just to kind of doing my part in just feeding the household, if you will. You want some, Alma? I'll send some samples.
Okay. Yeah, good for you. Thank you, Alfred, for your updates.
Thanks,
Thank you so
thanks
much.
everyone. I'm Alfred Asenas from Hawaii. We live in interesting times. Good night.
Good night. All right. Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned. Mental health is becoming a major issue in Canada as people deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's Thomas Eyelikeness.
One of the biggest challenges Canadians face during the pandemic is preserving their mental health and wellness. The isolation brought about by the lockdown has taken a toll on many people. They're alone. They don't know how to cope. Social connections are gone, at least for the time being, and life is different. It's uncertain, and people have trouble handling uncertainty. In an effort to help, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the Canadian government has set up a new resource dedicated to mental wellness.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, know that you aren't alone, and there are people who can help. We have launched a mental health portal at canada.ca and through the Canada COVID-19 app, where you can go to find support. So if you need to, please reach out. We'll be there for each other.
Now, this website will connect Canadians to peer support workers, social workers, psychologists, and other professionals. They can have confidential chat sessions or phone calls. It'll make it easier to find credible information and help address mental health and substance use issues. A special resource has also been set up for children. The Kids Help Phone provides young people with the mental health support that they need during this difficult time, because of school closures and reduced access to community resources. Minor sports also have been shut down, and that's a loss for many kids because it not only gave them an activity to participate in, it also formed their social network. Now, my province of Alberta has also made mental health a priority. Premier Jason Kenney today announced $53 million has been earmarked to improve access to telephone and online supports. And this will be things like the mental health helpline and the Kids Help Phone, as well. The province kicks money into that. In addition, money will go towards those disproportionately affected by the pandemic. This would include people like seniors or Indigenous communities. A government survey has found that 3/4 of Albertans who were asked felt their mental health has been affected by the pandemic. This is sad because 1/3 of respondents say they feel depressed or hopeless at least once a week. I hope you're not letting things get you down. I wish you all good health. Take care of others and take care of yourselves. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Thomas. It's now the time to launch a new iPhone. Despite a pandemic-induced global economic crisis, Apple is widely believed to be set to release a reduced-priced handset that aims to fill a gap in its lineup as early as this month. Google could also follow a similar path after Samsung last week unveiled new devices costs less than $500. Reports suggest that the new Apple handset, to be called iPhone SE or iPhone 9, could have a starting price under $400 and generate some growth with a timetable uncertain for a new flagship smartphone for the California giant. And as the coronavirus pandemic continues to roil the world, China's wet markets have acquired a bad international reputation. COVID-19 seemingly emerged from stalls selling live game in Wuhan late last year, shut down during the lengthy quarantine that sealed off the city to the rest of the world until April 8. The city's markets are now fighting for survival as customers have not been rushing back. Take a look.
我认为它和超市是差不多的，所以相对来说还是比较安全的。但是不安全没办法，超市的物价比较贵。菜不是，我是除了猪牛羊，像兔子之类的我都不会吃。对，哪怕我是在成都上学，当地的老妈兔头都特别有名，我都不会吃。
32 Rohingya are believed to have died on an overcrowded boat stranded in the Bay of Bengal for nearly 2 months, according to an official, after hundreds of starving people were rescued from the vessel. The boat had tried to reach Thailand and Malaysia. Some of the nearly 400 people rescued from the trawler told the Bangladesh Coast Guard. The bodies of the 32 dead were thrown overboard, according to Lieutenant Shah Zia Rahman, citing survivor accounts. Nearly 250 women and children were among those rescued late Wednesday off Bangladesh's southeastern coast. A Rohingya community leader in Bangladesh, who declined to be named, said there were 482 people on board the boat, and that suggests that more than 50 people may have perished. Coast Guard Lieutenant Commander Hamidul Islam said some of the survivors reported the vessel was denied entry by authorities in Thailand and Malaysia. Bangladesh media reports quoted one of those on board as saying the boat was denied entry by Malaysia because of stricter controls due to the coronavirus pandemic. And finally in our news, here's Julius Aala to tell us how students are making use of this time to their advantage to study better. Julius Aala reports from Madrid, Spain.
Staying at home, many people are looking for some activities to do while they're in quarantine. Here in Madrid, Spain, let us see how students are using their time in a productive way.
Hola, soy Marc Josep Aala de Madrid, España. Os quiero contar sobre mi experiencia de los estudios en esta cuarentena. Contaros también que soy de segundo bachillerato, por eso en este año estoy preparándome para la selectividad y puedo decir que tengo más tiempo en la selectividad que antes. Puedo estudiar mejor. Estudio ahora 4 horas cada día. Porque el tiempo es más largo y no tienes mucho que hacer. Por eso es una gran ventaja y estoy aprovechándolo. También las tareas nos lo dan ahora por las plataformas de internet. y lo tenemos que hacer y escanearlo y después entregárselo a ellos. Bueno, creo que eso es más difícil porque no sabes cómo organizar tu tiempo y eso. Si eres muy desordenado, eso es difícil. Pero eso, yo puedo decir que he estudiado más en la cuarentena que antes.
Hola, soy Pablo Martín Jr. de Madrid, España. Tengo 19 años y soy un estudiante de segundo de bachillerato en Ciencias Sociales. Muchos estudiantes pueden pensar que en cuarentena tienen todo el tiempo del mundo para poder aprender, organizarse bien en las asignaturas. Sin embargo, tenemos un gran problema, y es que nos falta la figura del profesor. Y cuando tenemos dudas, tenemos problemas a la hora de entender las asignaturas, nos falta alguien que nos enseñe o que nos resuelva las dudas o problemas que tenemos. Aquí, por ejemplo, en España tenemos la suerte de que muchos colegios han decidido seguir impartiendo sus clases a través de plataformas online, en donde los profesores envían aclaraciones, deberes, tareas e incluso intentan resolver las dudas que tenemos los estudiantes. Sin embargo, nos resulta un poco difícil continuar el curso con normalidad.
Help save lives, stay at home. Reporting from Madrid, Spain, I am Mark Julio Sala for Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Julius. May we leave you with a word of hope. Together we are strong. Together we can persevere. Getting through this will take everyone working together. Let's do our part. And that's the news for tonight. Join us online again here tomorrow evening. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.